Recording is on.
Okay, so this is a kind of a summary of last year's nuclear weapons activities. I'm with a group called the Alliance for Nuclear Accountability, and I brought a booklet. It shows all the different nuclear weapons production sites around the country, and so that's what the Alliance for Nuclear Accountability is. People from all the different laboratories and other type of like a gaseous diffusion site to make the uranium for the bombs in Kansas City, where they assembled the bombs. Rocky Flats, which was raided by the FBI because they were spewing plutonium everywhere and closed down years ago, but we still have people there because they just paved it, just covered it over and made it into a park. Oh, no worries, everybody. So that's kind of the whole attitude of the nuclear weapons complex, just to give you an idea. Now I'm going to give you a few facts, and you do not have to memorize them. So in 2024, Wisconsin spent $1.88 billion on nuclear weapons. Whether we wanted to or not, that money was taken out of our taxes to do that.
Can you say that number again?
That number, 1.88 billion. Almost $2 billion of our money, which we
So
really
took it out.
For Wisconsin?
Yeah. The federal government, it comes out of our U.S. taxes. Right now, there are 12,331 nuclear weapons and warheads, actually, in the world. And at one point, there were 60,000. But as you know, just one tiny part of these weapons being exploded would cause a catastrophic climate change. It would result in what they call nuclear winter and a global famine that would maybe kill 2 billion people. There's been some efforts toward eliminating nuclear weapons, and one was called the Non-Proliferation Treaty. That's the only treaty that's left after the Republican presidents have basically left every single arms control treaty in the world. It entered into force in 1970. And the bargain was that the non-nuclear states would not acquire nuclear weapons, and the nuclear weapon states would share the benefits of peaceful nuclear technology, which Alliance for Nuclear Accountability does not believe in. And also that the nuclear armed country would agree to pursue nuclear disarmament. Well, after 55 years of promising to do this, they have not done anything toward it. They have meetings every 5 years, and every 5 years they don't do anything. So there's a lot of countries with nuclear arms: US, Russia, United Kingdom, France, China, India, Pakistan, and North Korea, which only has a couple, and Israel, which doesn't declare it, but it does have nuclear weapons. And the US is violating the Non-Proliferation Treaty by horizontal proliferation. It has nuclear weapons stationed in 5 different European countries. And this is really wasting our resources. This could improve our lives and protect the environment instead of spending all this money. We could stop climate change. And I just want to say that nuclear power is not a solution to climate change. So last year, well, actually, I don't have last year yet. But in 2024, we spent $94,485 million on nuclear weapons. That is, get this, you don't have to remember this, $5,880 an hour. Every second the world spends $2,898 on nuclear weapons. This is for the world. $173,880 per minute, and $10,432,000 per hour. We do have an insane world. So Trump came in and he has all these programs and he has all these great names for. So he's calling this one Unleashing a Golden Era of Energy Dominance and Energy Innovation and Protecting the Nation. So for last year, I have that, we spent $110 billion on nuclear weapons. But what's interesting about this, it's a 25% increase and what they said they were going to be spending over 10 years, because they always estimate 10 years ahead. Well, that's what they do when they decided they're going to modernize all of the nuclear weapons, and it started out they were going to spend $1 trillion over 30 years to modernize every nuclear weapon, every warhead, every delivery vehicle, nuclear submarines, all of it. And so bombers, a lot of the funding.
Obama.
What?
This renovation thing started under Obama, right? It's a huge project.
Well, the plan started way before Obama, and he traded off the New START treaty to get the number of total deployed nuclear weapons down to, I think, about 1,400. However, that was not a really good deal, because then he had to sign on to the modernization program, which was $1 trillion to actually remake every single nuclear weapon in the nuclear arsenal.
They were using like floppy disks, 3.5 inch. What I'm saying is
probably.
huge renovation.
I'm sure the technology was terrible.
It's probably more reliable than what we have now.
Well, it could be. I didn't get into that in this, but what I did find is that there are major nuclear weapons contractors, Bechtel, General Dynamics, Honeywell, Lockheed Martin, and Northrop Grumman, and they do everything they can to keep that money flowing. They might invest $30 million and get $30 billion in return. And they have between 800 and 1,000 lobbyists working on Congress every day. Our group, the Alliance for Nuclear Accountability, spends 1 week there, and it's really a big effort for us to spend a week lobbying Congress. And so we have a big challenge ahead. Also, these lobbyists are through a revolving door, so careers go through the Pentagon, the Congress, the executive branch, and then back to lobbying for the private contractors. And that's actually, they've handed over almost all of the nuclear weapons work to private contractors. If you go to any of these nuclear weapon sites that I was telling you about, Hanford Nuclear Reservation, where I live near the Lawrence Livermore Nuclear Laboratory, they have all been handed to private contractors who make lots of money. So this is a system that just keeps self-perpetuating it. And there is no accountability for huge cost overruns. I'll get into that a little bit later. So the US has spent $9 trillion since 1945 on nuclear weapons. And so I'll just get all this. So the US has 5,000 nuclear weapons altogether. Now, some of them are stockpiled, and it would take a little bit of work to bring them back into action. 1,700 are deployed and ready for delivery, which would destroy the Earth many, many, many times over. And Russia has about 5,800 nuclear weapons. And so they don't spend nearly what the US spends to maintain their nuclear weapons. They spend about $10 billion a year. And NATO also has nuclear warheads. And this is very scary, because every autumn, NATO and the US carry out their exercises, they call them, to practice nuclear war with Russia. So this year they did it again in October. They had Steadfast Noon, practicing nuclear war on Russia with 32 states, 71 aircraft, and 2,000 military personnel. They are very provocative, and they are truly frightening, because Russia responds with their own nuclear war exercises. So I wanted to talk a little bit about nuclear testing, because this is what has really affected the indigenous people of the world. So the worldwide, all the nuclear weapon states have tested 2,000 nuclear weapons. And this is called environmental damage, atmospheric contamination, and probably millions of deaths from illness and radiation poisoning. The US never signed the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty, which was passed at the United Nations in 1996. So nuclear explosive testing was stopped in 1992. The U.S. had done 1,000 nuclear tests, but the National Nuclear Security Administration, under the Department of Energy, they're in charge of it, will still do some nuclear weapons testing at the Nevada test site. These tests are subcritical. This is a step before an explosive chain reaction, but as we know, Trump has threatened to resume nuclear testing, and it would take a lot of work to change it from subcritical to critical testing, but it could be done in I don't know, like a year or however long it would take. So we're keeping an eye on that, and I'll keep you informed if there's any move toward that. If the U.S. were to resume nuclear testing, Russia and the other nuclear weapon states said they will also resume. And this is very reckless. It could just go back decades of trying to prevent nuclear war from all the testing. This would be a really bad political decision. The radioactivity released by above nuclear tests is spread through the atmosphere. And here's an estimate, 430,000 additional cancer deaths due to cumulative radiation doses. So one thing that happens is that it's cumulative. So say we have strontium-90 in our milk, and we're drinking that milk. After a while, that radiation can build up, but they are also finding there is no threshold to getting cancer from certain kinds of radiation. Hey, no problem. Why don't we change the threshold or what people can receive for nuclear radiation? So that's what the government is doing now. I haven't found out if they carried through with this plan yet, but that's the plan, to say, oh, all right, just up the amount. Well, there's some hope. The United Nations has a new treaty. It's called the Treaty for the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, and it was passed in 2017 by a majority of the world's countries, and it entered into force to 2021, and we had a big demonstration here in Milwaukee and one at the Capitol in Madison the next year. And it prohibits all nuclear weapons activities and calls for remediation of the environment and compensation for the victims of the nuclear age. And so many nations have not signed on to the treaty. The U.S. has threatened any nation that wants to sign on, that it has some control over, that they had better not sign on. So I'm in some groups that are working to get the U.S. to sign and ratify the Treaty for the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons. And the International Campaign to Abolish Nuclear Weapons in 2017 won the Nobel Peace Prize because of their work to get this treaty passed in the United Nations. And Peace Action Wisconsin is a partner to the International Campaign to Abolish Nuclear Weapons, which has information on how you can divest from financial institutions that are investing in nuclear weapons production. And you go to ICANW and go to Don't Bank on the Bomb. Now, if anybody wants this, I can send you this whole big long, pages long, and tell me when to stop because it goes on and on. How to, if you see if your bank or wherever you have money invests in the bomb. There's also Warheads to Windmills. It's a coalition of organizations who want to work together to address the existential threats of climate change and nuclear war. Now, our demand is that the U.S. and 8 other nuclear-armed nations sign the UN Treaty for the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, negotiate a fossil fuel phase-out treaty, which we've been trying to get at the UN for a while, and eliminate the nuclear weapons of all the nuclear-armed states, and use those human and financial resources to transition to a fossil-free economy. Nationally, we support legislation such as the Norton Bill. Eleanor Holmes Norton of Washington, D.C. introduces this every year, and it calls on the U.S. to sign the treaty and the prohibitions of nuclear weapons and eliminate nuclear weapons and use the resources that address the climate crisis.
What's
and
a
other
fossil-free economy?
to eliminate fossil fuels and transition to renewables, green energy, which
Oh,
this
okay.
green energy, we do not include nuclear.
Okay.
Milwaukee County and the city of Milwaukee have both passed back from the brink resolutions, but we can also push to get our city and county to divest from nuclear weapons. The website for ICANN has, and back from the brink have, also have resolutions and resources for communities. There's a couple of resolutions that are in the US, and I won't go into all this. I think you got the idea. Nuclear disarmament, no first use, no presidential launch authority, no new nuclear weapons, maintain the moratorium on nuclear testing, and support a just economic transition for impacted communities. So how much time do I have?
You used about 12 minutes.
What?
12 minutes you've
About
used.
12 minutes.
And how,
So.
This
you have
ain't
about 3 more minutes.
3 more
You have
minutes.
about 3 more minutes to know.
All right.
Or what about questions? Should we allocate?
Yeah, we want to do questions.
Okay, you all know about Hiroshima and Nagasaki and Gaza. It looks like a nuclear weapon has been
Fukushima.
dropped on it. What?
Fukushima. What, do you know much?
I'm not going to talk about
Okay.
Fukushima because I'm focusing on nuclear weapons.
But yeah, but I
Okay,
just, the reason
because
I
that's
brought
a
that
long
up is,
one too.
yeah, they changed the
I already have
standards
13
there.
pages. so
Yeah.
I can't do it all.
In other words, the children are getting exposed to all this radiation.
That's
It's like,
terrible.
well,
That's
okay,
awful. I mean,
it's
I
not
could go
safe.
into
We'll
the
just change the
radiation
standard, now it's safe.
from nuclear. Why we're against nuclear power, but okay.
Sure.
All right, so I just wanted to talk about how tribal lands and members are disproportionately impacted by radiation and the arrogance of the world's militaries towards indigenous nations. It's really shameful, and all their testing was done on lands occupied by indigenous and poor communities. The first nuclear weapon ever used was the Trinity test by the Los Alamos lab on July 16th, 1945, before the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombs were dropped. And these are lands inhabited by poor farming communities, indigenous people who were never warned about the radioactive fallout. Over 1,000 people, their animals died, they can't eat their crops, and only recently have they been included in the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act. But it's too late for a lot of the people who have died. Other tests took place in Alaska, Nevada, Colorado, and Mississippi. The United States detonated 67 nuclear weapons on Bikini and Anatoak atolls in the Marshall Islands. Didn't tell the people about it. They were forcibly relocated. They lost their lands. Castle Bravo was a 15 megaton test, and they were like, well, we hope this stops. We're not quite sure, but not going to just keep going. It was 1,000 times the force of the bomb dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Well, they have bombs that are, today's bombs are many hundreds of times stronger than the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombs. They're kind of what they call continent destroyers. So nation destroyers will all just be vaporized. And it's just really shameful how the Marshallese were treated. They were stripped naked and sprayed down after they were exposed to the nuclear weapons. I have a really good video. It's about how they were used as human experiments.
When did that happen?
What?
When was that happening?
That happened in the 1950s. Yeah, I'm not sure. Between 1946 to 1958.
A minute.
And the US kept all this news from the public.
Which group was this that was used?
The Marshall Islands, and a lot of the Marshallese have moved to the US because they can't live on their islands anymore, but it's not anything like their Paradise Islands. I just wanted to say a little bit at least about the Western Shoshone people who hosted our last Alliance for Nuclear Accountability meeting in Nevada. And because they have, it's land that's guaranteed them by the Treaty of Ruby Valley. And the 1,350 square 1,350 square miles had 1,000 nuclear weapons tested, and 100 were atmospheric. This has poisoned the Shoshone people, and they try to understand what's happening to their tribe as a result of the nuclear weapons of mass destruction that were secretly brought to our Shoshone country then, tested without our knowledge or consent. We found that 928 nuclear weapons tests took place, over 100 in the atmosphere, with local, regional, and county fallout. We found that our plants, animals, and people were exposed deliberately. Our exposure was significantly higher than other Americans received. The Department of the Interior, the Bureau of Land Management exploited the vulnerable Shoshone who were exercising their treaty rights as herdsmen. They blamed our livestock for overgrazing, and they went and they took the people's livestock because I don't think they wanted any proof of their radioactive contamination, for the destruction of the range caused by nuclear weapons fallout. Do I have any more time?
No, I was actually going to ask you about that, so I'm on the stack of questions. Is it okay if we go to questions?
Sure.
You want to finish out?
Let me finish with the Native American people, and then I'll quit.
Shoshone are Native American, right?
Yes. Yeah. One of our members, board members of the Alliance for Nuclear Accountability is Ian Sabarte, and he's principal headman of the Western Shoshone tribe. So we have a really strong connection in our group with Native American people. Also, people who are affected by the uranium mining in Arizona and New Mexico. But it's also been done in Utah, Colorado, Montana, Wyoming, and South Dakota. And it's poisoned the springs and the waters of indigenous land. There are 15,000 uranium mine locations in the United States. Many have closed. The demand for uranium had decreased, but it's coming back. Hundreds of abandoned uranium mines remain on the Navajo reservation. They have all been abandoned and never properly cleaned up or remediated. Uranium dust blows across reservation lands, bringing invisible death and sickness. Many Native American miners who were never explained the dangers of the radiation have died from radiation sickness. They were never issued proper protective equipment. They track radiation back to their homes and their communities. Uranium mining is coming back. It's being done in the Grand Canyon on the lands of the Havasupai Nation. This land is also sacred to many tribes of the region, and they have united to shut down the Pinyon mine in the Grand Canyon. The mine is desecrating sacred sites and jeopardizing the existence of the Havasupai tribe. People who are coming to see the Grand Canyon will pass right by a uranium mine. They've already contaminated much land, and the Navajo people have been protesting this. They say, we are done being a resource colony. We are done allowing our people to suffer and die, only to power and fuel the outside world. Some of the homes on the Navajo Nation have no electricity. We are done with poor quality or no cleanup of all extractive industries, including a new wave of so-called clean energy that only rapes our Mother Earth. So this is continuing. They mill at the White Mountain Ute tribes' lands at the White Mesa Uranium Mill. So we say nuclear waste, clean it up before more is created. So there's a long story about the waste. And I just wanted to say, because you were asking me about this, Rita. Build, baby, build is what the mantra of the nuclear weapons and power industry. Trump has an executive order, it's called Unleashing American Energy, to increase domestic energy production. It guts the National Environmental Policy Act, also known as NEPA, which requires federal agencies to consider the environmental impacts of proposed actions and how they would affect people living nearby. This is not only for radiation, this is across the whole country. The administration issued a rule that to remove existing regulations, including the requirements for public comments on proposed projects' environmental impacts. This really hurts us. We always use that to get the word out to people. They didn't hear. We translate our meetings into Spanish, they do, they are English only people. There are over a dozen different sets of procedures and processes, and that we don't know all of them. So it's basically a pay to play. And Trump's big, beautiful bill, it allows for project sponsors, including private entities, to pay for expedited environmental reviews. This is done without conscience. There's no consequences, just unleashed greed. I'll end it there.
Open up for questions.
I'll deal with that. Oh, yeah, I wanted to ask you, so when you did this, you did a demonstration down in New Mexico, or what? You traveled there for some reason?
I did not travel there.
Oh, you did?
I wasn't able to.
Okay, so you went to Congress and you just,
I went to Washington DC for the last 2 years, 3 years maybe,
okay.
yeah, with the Alliance. And so we were joined by many young Indigenous people. We gave them scholarships to come and be there for a week. And we had a day of training where people got caught up. And then for 3 days, we lobbied. And then we had our spring meeting, which was more education of people and reports from the different sites and about what's happening there.
Can you tell us how the Wisconsin, our legislators in Wisconsin,
How our legislators, you have to,
our legislators in Wisconsin, were they receptive to what you had to say?
no, we never get to talk to anybody there. We're such small fry. We don't give them any money, so they don't meet with us. They give us an aide. The first time we met with Tammy Baldwin, we met from an aide from the Pentagon, who was nice, but
So it wasn't, there was no direct connection to our legislators?
well, they let us meet with their
Staff members?
aides, and their aides nod their
Okay.
heads, and some of them don't even take notes. They don't even pretend. Some of them are great,
Yeah.
like Raphael Warnock in Georgia. We had a delegation of women from Georgia, from Women's Action for New Directions, and they're great. And because they've been fighting these nuclear power plants that Tom was like objecting to, of course, because these power plants cost $36 billion, and the poor ratepayers in Georgia have to pay for this. And so it's a cost overrun of like 10 times what the power company said it was going to cost, and it's contaminating the Savannah River. And that's on one side of it. The other side is the Savannah River nuclear weapons complex, and that's lands that they stole from the Cherokee and other nations. I think it's 242 square miles of land that's been vastly contaminated, and they've been contaminating the Savannah River for decades and decades. And so and I don't think I got into this in here, but they built this thing called the mixed oxide fuel plant. And the plan was to take this used nuclear fuel and was it fuel or weapons? I think it was nuclear weapons waste, and they were going to recycle it and make mixed oxide fuel. Well, they were never able to do it. They spent $8 billion building this massive building, and then they said, it's not going to work. Oh, well. So they just scrapped the whole plan. They stripped all the equipment out of the building and sold it off to corporations for pennies on the dollar. And now they're like, well, what can we do with this new building? Oh, I know, we'll build plutonium bomb cores for the new nuclear weapons that we're making. Because after all, we're making 450 new intercontinental ballistic missiles. They're now called the Sentinel missiles. And we're also building new Trident bombs, missiles for the Trident submarines. So their plan is to start building, and so, well, all right, that's going to cost a little money, so $8 billion, and the ultimate price now, and they haven't even built it yet, is $25 billion for this building. That is the most expensive building in history outside of the Taj Mahal or the Great Shrine in Mecca. I mean, there is nothing in the world that compares to the amount of money that they're going to be spending on this nuclear weapons production site.
Where's that?
It's called Savannah Riverside in South Carolina. And thanks to Lindsey Graham, our wonderful senator there, we know all his other wonderful work.
Is that it for you?
Yeah.
You've been waiting patiently, Tom. Go ahead.
Okay.
And anybody
Yeah.
who wants me to email, just I will. I'll
I
email
guess
it.
a comment. So I think from what I understand, there's this effort to create these little modular nuclear reactors for all these data centers, and Bill Gates is behind it. I looked into why does AI need this? Well, AI actually needs it. I think it's big finance, banking. They're going to be consuming a lot of AI. And then believe it or not, AI itself has to rebirth itself by creating a new large language model, and that uses a lot of energy. And then entertainment, believe it or not, is using a huge amount. So
Big money.
yeah, and there's some other, I can't remember what the other item is, but there is a demand. And then I think it makes sense because again, you're lucky I'm in these groups with conservative people.
Right.
We should, because if we're just preaching to ourselves, we need to be able to talk to people that are in this industry, and there are investors that are looking at, well, there's fusion. First of all, fusion is making progress. I know a guy in Seattle, nuclear fusion.
I know, but where did they make progress?
There's a company in Seattle. I have a friend who's had a tour of it, and they're able to sustain a reaction. They hammer this containment vessel with high energy pulses. They're able to get more energy out now.
But how much?
Oh no, it's still, well, anyhow.
It's not practical.
There's more, anyhow, that's.
Well, I'm just saying why, because at Lawrence Livermore Nuclear Weapons
But no,
Laboratory.
fusion wouldn't have the issues of fission, right? It's a whole different technology.
But, so they spent $12 billion and they haven't sustained it yet. So
Oh, yeah,
I'd
no,
say
they
it's
didn't.
not practical.
Well, anyhow, and then a comment, I think people need to be, well, yeah, the thorium, I think people will argue that the thorium nuclear reactors are fail-safe, people could just leave them.
They are not.
Well, I'm
There
just
is-
telling you what they argue.
Yeah, I
okay?
know what they argue.
Okay, and this is and that technology lost out because of Nixon. It was a big political thing. We could have had safer reactors. We have like multiple Mark IV nuclear reactors within like 400 miles of Milwaukee, and they're the same ones, the 1960s vintage that melted down in Fukushima. So we got danger in the Midwest.
Oh, yeah.
And then the last comment, I think we're using tactical nuclear weapons. We've been using them since World War II. Neutron bombs, for example. So it's just something, they don't tell it. Why should they tell us this, right?
No, we might scare people.
Yeah. All
Well,
right.
the
But
small
thank you
nuclear
for your work.
modular reactors, there was a group called Dairyland Energy Cooperative in Wisconsin that was going to purchase them from NuScale. But NuScale, it cost so much money, the investors lost all of their money because it cost like double what they said it was going to cost, and all the investors pulled out.
Well, what about the
So-
insurance? You can't get insurance.
Oh, you
right?
can't, when they think that the government's going to insure it, but there's I forget the name of it, there's an act where the nuclear power production companies only have to pay a certain amount, and then the government has to kick in and pay
So
the
the
rest.
government has to insure it because no
Yeah.
insurance company will.
So the taxpayers have to.
I guess I'd like to see if there's any questions from people online.
Oh, yeah.
Josh?
No questions, thank you.
I have a question.
Okay.
What more can we actually do about this as people in Wisconsin, as taxpayers? Are there ways that we can start scaling back any of this tax money from the government that we is there any way that we can not pay for our war machine anymore?
Right, exactly. Tax resistors league or,
Besides just tax evasion.
yeah. I don't know. I think that So an example of what can be done is when the Treaty for the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons came into effect, I wrote a letter to the president of Northwestern Mutual Life Insurance Company, which is also a big investor. They're a financial institution also. And I pointed out that they were spending over $1 billion on companies that produce nuclear weapons. And he actually wrote me back and said, oh, well, our company doesn't want to invest in nuclear weapons. So I didn't hear from him again for a while. I wrote him back and said, thank you. And then I checked the next year, and it didn't show any difference. I checked the next year, and they had divested about $600 million from nuclear weapons down to, they're still investing in companies that invest in nuclear weapons, so it's down to 300 million now. So things can be done, but you have to have a lot of people working on it. We had a big demonstration out in front of their
Pam, you know Kathy Kelly, right?
Who?
Kathy Kelly in
Yeah.
Chicago. I think she pays into an escrow. In other words, she's not paying her taxes. And she's not been arrested or anything.
Yeah, well,
I think if
Lincoln,
you pay your money, you have to know what you're doing, but if you pay it into an escrow account, they can't put you in jail.
ah,
And then you have to put stipulations on it. You can't use this for.
oh. Well, Lincoln Rice, who lives here in Milwaukee, who is in Casa Maria, he's head of the tax resistors league. So we have somebody right here in Milwaukee that works on that. But I think what I want to do is find out if our city and county are invested in nuclear weapons with the help of Don't Bank on the Bomb. And I have somebody in positions for social responsibility, if she ever has time, who's going to help me with that campaign. You know, we're also overextended by everything. That's the problem. I think I'm retired, but I'm not. No retiring from war.
No.
Okay, my voice is going up.
Thank
I'm
you.
going to pass the mic to, thank you. Who gets the mic next?